sorry.
Scooch up right
Yes,
next to her
yeah.
and talk and then
That'd be
pass it.
perfect, thanks. There's chairs if you want to come sit. We haven't started yet. You're welcome.
Thank you.
No?
For now.
Okay. 10 seconds from now, from when you came in?
Oh, like when you walked down.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 School Committee meeting. This is being recorded on SMAC for future viewing. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is the superintendent of schools appointment. So we're going to talk through that. And then we'll go to public comment following that on the agenda. So we're circling back to the last meeting that we had where we did a public interview of Dr. Joe Baeta. And just to kind of recap where we got with that, we had a couple meetings ago, we talked about the fact that Dr. Ab, you had notified us on February 14th that you would be leaving the district to pursue another business manager role. And therefore, we obviously were trying to understand like where that left us. And then we got the resignation of our business manager as well, who's pursuing a different role in another district as well. So closer to home, which good luck, better commute. And as that was, we were also looking for a principal of the middle school, and we're also looking for a special ed director. So there's many key leadership roles that we're trying to fill. And in such, I asked the school committee if they would give a vote for me to reach out to a sitting superintendent, one that has been engaged with you, Dr. Rabb, over the past month and a half to try to help out with things, questions and things of that nature. And so he came to the top of my head, you know, if he's been engaged with some of the Stoughton school things, and he lives in Stoughton. So anyway, we had him in for an interview, and so now this meeting is going to be for us to discuss our feedback on the interview and to openly talk about those thoughts. And what I was thinking is, because in the past we've done a very long process, this is our fourth superintendent in 5 years, doing the math in my head. And then we did a long search process with two of them through the MASC. And so since we had the previous two that were newer to the role, and, you know, once you get into this role, it's a very tough role, and this is a very tough town. So we obviously decided to do a bit of an independent search and look to see what we could do, find. At that end, we don't have two candidates or three to talk through and to make any motion. So I think that we have to make a motion on the table, and then we can talk about the motion, right? Is that how we should do it?
I can make a motion to make a motion to offer.
So I'd like to make a motion. I have to think about this. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Dr. Joseph F. Baeta as superintendent of Stoughton Public Schools, effective July 1st, 2023.
Well, you made it, I'll second it.
Okay, and so the motion's on the table, we're gonna talk about it now. Okay? So that's how it will go. So, unless there's any other motion otherwise, but,
Is the motion pending successful?
The negotiations?
Yeah.
yes, pending, yes. So it'll, yes, I have to finish the motion, don't I?
Good.
Yeah, thank you, girl. New school committee member right here, good job. So that's pending successful contract negotiations. So now we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to start down this end, if that's all right, Fabienne, with you, and then we can like work our way down and just kind of talk about how we feel towards that.
In terms of my opinion, I didn't have any problems with his interview. He answered all the questions concisely and sufficiently, from my understanding. Yeah. And he seems well, what's the word? He seems well qualified
Yes.
for the position as well, based on the research that I've done and the, looking at his background, his resume, cover letter, and everything. So I don't really have any additional concerns or questions pertaining to his qualifications. So I'm good with that.
Thank you.
I was also impressed with his ability to answer our questions concisely or with plain examples of his experience. I do think that we need somebody with experience like him, not just in the role of superintendent for schools, but also being familiar with all aspects of being a superintendent in a town. He's familiar with Stoughton, I think, is a big plus, especially with all that's going on in town right now. Knowing who these people are, what their roles are, what our roles are, I think is going to be a huge help for us next year as we fill the positions that we have to fill and sort of look forward to what we can offer to Stoughton.
Thank you. Katie?
I think that he was a great candidate, and I am super excited to have him in the leadership role of, for Stoughton, and I just think it is the perfect opportunity for Stoughton, and I'm just very excited to offer him the job here.
I really appreciated that Dr. Bayetta mentioned or shared his belief that all children can learn. I think that's really important. I think he showed through his answers that he is relationship driven, committed to getting feedback from all members of the community. He said that he has teacher focus groups, he does data walks, he seems to be committed to his own professional development and that of his staff and his team. I think his use of data is going to be really important. I was especially really struck by the goal of 90% reading proficiency for all third graders. I think that that's like the kind of ambitious student learning goal that we like. Just was excited to hear that. I think he has experience with building projects that's going to be really helpful for the district. So I just was very impressed with his candidacy. I think especially given his knowledge of Stoughton and the community, he seems like a great candidate.
Yeah, obviously I agree. Speaking to him, and I think this is a great opportunity for Stoughton, the town, as a whole, because he lives in Stoughton. He went through Stoughton Public Schools when he immigrated here from Portugal. He's successfully for 15 years been a superintendent in another district and been able to manage the budget successfully, build programs, build relationships, understand everything inside and out, and also be able to be part of all the other extra committees. He's on the MASS board, all these other things that he's contributing to in town. He was the, fun fact for people that didn't watch, he told us that he was we knew and learned that he's the youngest member that was ever elected as a Stoughton School Committee member back in the 90s. Yes, it was the youngest, beat you by a year, Lindsay. So it tells you that he puts effort into the town and the schools. He was a town meeting representative. He served on the Public Safety Building Committee. He served on many other subcommittees in town, a lot of things. I thought that was commitment to the town, which to me is very important, given the fact that we've had so much change over the past 4 years. It's important to have consistency and having people know that there's someone that understands the community and is not going anywhere. So I really appreciated that, and his communicating and how he does the focus groups and how he communicates was huge. I think that's always been a goal of every superintendent we've had. Katie, right, the past 3 were communication. It's really important. And I'm extremely excited to have more. I would not have even wanted to make the phone call or asked you guys. So I'm happy to hear from you guys that you guys also agree.
Can I add something else?
Absolutely.
I was also impressed that he came in and he didn't want to, redo the entire school district. He thought we had some really good bones that he wanted to build on, and he had specific programs in mind that he mentioned that he was really excited about and thought could really drive our district forward. And I thought that spoke to that continuity, consistency, and kind of building and building people's confidence back in the school system.
Yeah, I agree. Heard a lot of positive feedback from the community on this. It's actually overwhelming. It was overwhelming. And, we have to put that aside at times when, people in the community feel a certain way or think a certain way. But when he came to interview personally for myself, I was extremely impressed. And I also love that he had stated that I'm always learning and I'm willing to learn. And he noted, the district I'm coming from is 1,000 students shorter than what we are here, but that's that curve, and that's where I'm coming in to bring what I can and to learn. So that was really important, and I just think Stoughton deserves it.
Yep.
Stoughton deserves it. So, yeah, I'm very happy. And so I don't know if there's any other discussion, if we want to take a vote on the motion. And then, once I take the vote on the motion, I would have to pause the meeting. So we're going to have to pause the meeting, and I have to leave the room to give him a call to see if he would accept the position if we have a positive vote.
So you made the motion, I second it.
Yep, so, guys good? No more discussion? All right, great. So, all in
Yes.
favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
A big yes. Very good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shut the mics. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to make a phone call. All right, so we're back. I just called Dr. Baeta to let him know that we had put forward the motion, and it had set through, and Dr. Baeta said he wanted to thank the committee, and he accepts that. I'm shocked. And that he is looking forward to coming to Stoughton Public Schools. So, very excited. So I invited him to come to the next school committee meeting just to say a few words when he gets here. Gonna cry. So we're extremely excited, and we're looking forward to welcoming him to the district. All right. So very good. So there's that piece. That's complete. The next part we have is public comment. Lisa Lines, there you are. And if you want to take the microphone. What might be helpful to, yes, there you go.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I come before you from many parents who are either still at work or on their way home trying to feed their children dinner. So I come before you to express my concerns with matters that are occurring in our schools. There are teachers who are writing political speech on dry erase boards and complaining to students about the neutrality directive from Dr. Raab, while the high school principal allows students to protest during the school day when they should be learning and not disrupting other students' learning time. In the month of February, middle school students were writing the words slave on white students' hands and making them carry their backpacks and books. The assistant principal blocked off tables at lunch and stated that white and black students would not be segregated, and then forced students to sit together based on the different colors of their skin. No parent sends their child to school so that they can be subjected to this. Stop dividing our diverse population into parts. We are more than the sum of our parts, for we are a sovereign town and a nation with a diverse population. This is a place for learning and not a place for the adults that we entrust our children to indoctrinate them with their personal beliefs and create activists and social justice warriors. No one should know who a teacher voted for, what their opinion of an elected member of government is, or which social justice movements they believe in. Just teach the facts and critical thinking skills to help them get to their own conclusions. Parents should decide on the values that they want to instill in their children and do not need teachers brainwashing them. All this energy should be focused on academics and why we are not number one, or at least in the top 5 in educational standard. Let's get back to educating our students in academics and reaching for excellence. It is an intellectually dishonest argument to suggest citizens wanting to focus on academics have hate in their hearts. It is for the love of our children and country we make this request. Dr. Raab, I ask that you work with your principals or the new superintendent, work with the principals to hold employees of the school department accountable for their actions and stop giving them a slap on the wrist. Our children and parents deserve that. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you. The next part is the superintendent update. We have no one else signed up for public comment.
Thank you, Mrs. Gropey, members of the committee. I have 3 things I'd like to mention this evening. During the week of April 3rd, we have 2 pretty significant reviews happening in the district. The first is a review of our ELE program, our English Language Education Program. This happens once every 6 years, and they're visiting the district on April 5th. And so they'll be here all day visiting the district. Dr. Quealy, our ELE supervisor, has spent the better part of the last year and a half preparing for this visit. We are well prepared. We put out a press release this morning so people know that they're coming.
What's it, which one, which visit? I'm sorry, I missed.
This is the tiered focused monitoring review of our English language education program. So it's happening on April 5th, but the department has spent the whole year preparing for it, sending documentation. and we will be receiving, within 60 days of the visit, the chairperson will provide a report with information about the areas in which the district meets or exceeds regulatory requirements, and certainly areas where we may require assistance to correct or improve practices. So I know Dr. Quilly is looking forward to that report. She's worked really hard to bring us into line with all the different standards that the Department of Education has for ELE programs. At the same time, and there's no real reason why it's happening at the same time, but during that same week of April 3rd, we're doing a tiered focused monitoring review of our special education program as well. And so that happens once every 3 years, and the areas of review are related to special education, and they include student assessments, determination of eligibility, the IEPs, the IEP process in the district, and they go through all of the different areas that our special education program uses. They'll be here on 3 different days. They'll be here on Monday, April 3rd, doing a student record review and observing all 8 buildings.
Excuse me, Dr.
Sure.
Rapp, can you put your microphone on?
Of course, sir, sorry.
No worries.
Thank you. That's what I told everybody to do.
Thank you. I'll quickly repeat on the ELE too, just so that it's out there.
We actually got an email about that.
We did, and tomorrow there'll be an email on the special education one as well. So I didn't want to put them both out on the same day because I thought it might be confusing to the community to have literally, this it seems like the same review, one for ELE and one for special education. The ELE one is a little bit more intense. They will come on Wednesday, April 5th and Thursday, April 6th, and they'll be interviewing special education teachers, principals, the special education administrator, and they do have an exit interview with the superintendent as well. They talk to the CPAC chair, and they will also be summarizing activities and discussing any remaining issues that they may need to collect for data. Their findings will also come out and be a public document that everybody will have a chance to take a look at. So 2 pretty significant reviews for our ELE program and our special education program happening in the next 2 weeks. And then by the end of the school year, we'll have all of that data to look at for next year for improvements.
These reviews, what is it from DESE? Like, where do they say from DESE?
They're both from DESE.
And they just give us, what, a rating, or?
They rate us in several different areas. So they'll find areas where we exceed and areas we need improvement. So for ELE, for example, they're going to look at compliance. They're going to look at how many minutes each of our students is in class with their ELE teachers. With special education, they're going to look at IEPs. They're going to look at how they are written. Are they written consistently? Are they written with data-driven goals and objectives? And make sure that we are following all of those components. But they're both from the Department of Education.
Are there any repercussions if we have needs improvement?
We get time to fix them. So for the ELE program, it's a 6-year process, so they'll give us an improvement plan, and they'll say over the next 2 to 3 years, these are the things that you need to improve. Similarly with SPED, it's every 3 years. It'll be a little bit more accelerated, but they'll give us a list of things we need to do, and they'll also give us timeframes when we need to do those improvements as well, so it's all part of it.
Do you want to add anything?
So this is really standard.
Okay.
It used to be a 6-year cycle. What they did is they broke it up into 2 3-year cycles. They just split the whole thing apart. 4 components. There's SPED, ELE, federal grants, and civil rights. And currently, all 4 in process. Only 2 require a site visit if your paperwork looks great, and that would be SPED and ELE. And the way they rate you is partial, full, or not implementing a standard. We've never had a not implementing a standard ever. We've had partials in the past, and if you have partials, you simply put in a corrective action plan to meet the standard. And the reason why these are challenging for us is although the standard itself doesn't necessarily change a lot, the implementation or interpretation by the Department of Ed and what they're looking for does in fact change. And really what these are useful for us is allowing us to realign to whatever the current expectation is, in particular with ELE and SPED, because sometimes there are arbitrations or court rulings or changes to federal legislation where the same standard exists, but the requirements to meet that standard change. So, is it normal to get a partial or 2? It is. Maybe we'll see, maybe we won't. But it's as simple as putting in a corrective action plan, and it doesn't necessarily reflect poorly on the district. It just means the standard has changed somewhere along the lines, and we're just adjusting up to it. So this is a routine piece across all 4 domains.
Got it. Thank you.
No, thank you. So the only other thing I wanted to mention is, if you've driven by the high school, you may notice the scoreboard was damaged in a windstorm about a month ago. We received word today that they should be on site fixing that Thursday and Friday, so that it'll be fixed in time for our first opening game.
That's good.
I was happy to hear that. So I know with spring sports starting, I know it's been on people's minds.
Are the bathrooms fixed? I know there was a pipe burst, right? Was it the?
In the boys' room.
bathroom?
I believe so, but I need to check with Mrs. Husseini.
We probably need that fixed too, right? If we're gonna have games.
I'll double check the status on that.
Great.
But that's all I had to say this evening.
Anybody have any questions? Anything else? Dr. Ab? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ab. We don't have our student advisory rep present, so we're going to skip that on the agenda. We're going to move to new business and, hello? I'm going to pronounce your last name wrong.
Suko.
Oh, you say it right. Oh.
I've heard
You
it all.
say it differently. How do you say it?
I thought I said Suko. but-
No, I think you say, oh, it is Suko. Okay. Anyway, so we have Christine Suko, our business manager. Oh. So we're going to do the quarterly financial report, and then we're going to jump the budget up
Okay.
to that after.
All right.
Okay.
So, in your packet, you'll see that we created a new presentation of how to do financial reporting. This is through December 31st, so things have changed obviously since then. So the first page is just a cover sheet, and then the second page is like a table of contents. So the first sheet is the general fund. So you'll see you have the original budget, and then the second line is the additional Chapter 70 that was voted in the fall town meeting of $2,948,500. So if you look at the instruction, that the salaries that are encumbered there are only for full-time employees. That does not include anyone who's paid hourly, substitutes, or sick leave / buyback retirement. Those are not encumbered because they could change before the end of June, depending on the number of sick days they have, and whether they qualify for the retirement buyback. And then you'll see in pupil services, which is negative, I know that we have spoke about this before, is due to the rise of in the sped population within rising costs of the transportation for those students. And the next one, the insurances, which is our athletic insurance, our cyber liability insurance, and unemployment. We show a balance there because we encumbered based on what we used last year. So that's why you see some money there. And then the out-of-district tuition, we have $113,561, which at the next quarterly report, you'll see that that's going to change since December. And then it gives you the categories on the bottom: administration, instructional, pupil services, operations and maintenance, fixed charges, and programs with other school, and a description of what that is.
Can I just ask you a couple questions?
Of course you can. I was just going to say, if you have any questions, go right ahead.
We're reading your mind. So when will you come to the school committee to do any department, like interdepartmental transfers or anything like that? Is that because I'm only asking because you're leaving us June 1st? Is
Yes.
that your last day?
Yeah, probably May. I'll
Okay,
bring it
May?
To May.
Okay,
It's to the best of my knowledge in May, because,
that would be good.
okay, that was my plan, is to bring a quarterly report and also any transfers that are needed, which there's some that will be needed. Does that work?
No, that's good. So that gets taken care of before you leave. I think it's important to have that managed, and I know that even though you saw some positives, we've been talking, and that
In
the
the
sped
quarterly report,
tuitions have taken
May- I
over a
think
lot.
May is late in May, right, like the 24th is the school committee, I believe.
I don't know which meeting, but if it's got to be the second one, it would have to be the
So if
second.
it's the later one, I'll be able to do the quarterly report through April, so that will be pretty much up to date. But if it's early in May, it would only be through the end of March.
I'd suggest that you do it at the end of May,
Okay.
because you want to have the books up.
That's what
It's recent, yeah.
my plan was, just so it's further along to April,
Yeah,
to the end of
You
April
want
instead of
to.
the end of March.
because then you should really have a good idea of the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that will be closed out, and is there anything else to close out? I'm all nervous. Can you tell I'm so is there anything else that would need to be done on the books for the,
I'm gonna do the very best I can to wrap stuff up before the end
Yeah.
of June, before the end of May,
okay.
okay?
And we've seen quite an increase in the special education.
Yep, I'm gonna get to that when we talk about the
Okay.
24 budget.
Good, okay. Oh, yeah, the other piece that we're moving, yep.
So then the next page is the grants. So the top page is the FY '22 grants, which need to be spent by the end of August, which we have, I've met with the different departments that run them, and they will be closed out and spent. The only one that isn't is the ESSER 3, we have till September 30th of 2024. I think that you've already spoken to them about the HVAC projects, right?
The committee approved the ESER 3 at the last meeting.
Okay. And then the only other thing is that additional foundation aid, that was given to us late May, early June. And that was additional foundation due to the pandemic enrollment changes and the fluctuations. Because during the pandemic, the enrollment went down, and they based it on that year, so then they gave us additional foundation money that can be spent on anything. I don't know if you want me to read it, but.
No.
The payments were determined based on a modeling of the impact of pandemic-related enrollment changes, which would have had effect on the Chapter 70 aid. And then they can be carried into this year, obviously, because we didn't get them till June. In the spending purposes, there are no restrictions on how these one-time funds can be used to support the school district's operations or capital improvements. So pretty much, you can use it on anything for the schools. And it also says that there's no restrictions, but therefore, these payments are received by the city, town, or district. And then we established a fund, a grant fund, or a special revenue fund from the state, and it can be expended by school committee without further appropriation, because it's separate. It's not like added to the Chapter 70, this is just an additional foundation payment, one-time payment.
Got it.
So.
It's good. We're going to need it for special education.
Yeah, we're gonna need it for special
Some of
education.
it for special education, but there's also been some one-time payments that, for curriculum and materials, that one time. In my opinion, I would only want to use this money for a one-time payment, because we're not going to get this money again.
Right,
So we don't want to use it for something that we know we're going to have to buy again
Right.
next year.
right.
So-
Not for FTEs, nothing for that, nothing
Right,
recurring,
Right,
right.
so, I think I've charged $60,000 to it already. You don't see it here because it's been
Mm-hmm.
after December 31st. And I can give you the detail before I leave.
Okay.
But I'm keeping it to a one-time payment because it's not in the budget,
Yeah.
because it's a one-time deal. It's like a bonus.
What is the individuals with disabilities, the 240
Yes,
grant? What
sped
is-
grant. And same with the early childhood, that's special education as well.
Thank you.
And then you see the FY '23 grants, which can be rolled. So we have to use up the 22 grants before we should use up the 22 grants before we start using up the 23 grants. Do you have any other questions? How do you like the format?
I like it.
I like it, yeah, easy.
This is great. Yeah.
So the next financial report is the revolving accounts. So these are the balances as of December 31st. You see the receipts that came in and the expenses that went out and any encumbrances. The encumbrances are basically all salaries. Circuit breaker is special education tuition. And we've taken in $827, $768 so far this year. We've received 2 payments.
Okay. Great.
And same with if you look at the food service, it's only the full-time people that are encumbered here, not anybody hourly or subs are not encumbered at all. And then next is the student activities financial report. So this gives you back in, I forget what month you voted, but this is the balance as of 12/31. You see the beginning balance, which is the same thing that you voted on, 7/1. 12, and then the receipts and what has expensed out, and then the ending balance. High school has 1.5 pages. So, currently in the student activities account is $135,143, but that's the combination of the savings account. Remember, you voted back, I don't forget what month, October maybe, to establish a savings account where all the deposits go into, and then we ask for reimbursement into the checking accounts, and you also voted $25,000 for the high school and $5,000 for the middle school. So that 135, it's not the checking account, it's the checkings and the savings together.
Got it.
Same with the middle school, same thing. So the 8896 is their savings plus the 5,000 in their checking account.
Yep.
So we ask for reimbursement as they use that to be in compliance.
Thank you. That looks great. That's new to us, this reporting, so it's very transparent, and we appreciate it.
Do you have any questions on student activities? Anybody? I'm not singling you out, Lindsay, sorry, I just looked at you.
Should I?
Should I? No.
We're in compliance now. It's been out of compliance for quite some time, so we're in compliance with DESI regulations.
Katie, I would like a motion to move the FY24 budget and articles up.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and move the FY24 budget and articles to next on the agenda.
So moving to the FY24 budget and articles on the agenda. I'm going to open this up. It's a lot.
You should have at your table a copy of what I'm going to speak to tonight.
I'm going to open it up and then hand it off in a sec. So we had the FY24 budget and articles. The FY24 budget we voted on in December and submitted that on the 31st to FinCom. Then we went to the FinCom meeting on, what was the date?
March 1st.
Thank you. I was like in stereo. March 1st, and we discussed that. We got an additional $4.9 million in Chapter 70 school state aid. And we went to FinCom and we wanted to discuss it there. And we, at the time, talked about that there was a crisis with the insurance that was occurring in town, and what we wanted to do is try to talk through that and understand what could we do as our part for the town of Stoughton, and knowing that we were getting the state aid for the schools, and what we could do. So at that meeting, we stated to the financial committee members that we would like to help address that issue with the additional Chapter 70 funds that we were receiving, and that there was additional money that was left over from that, and we were trying to figure that all out. It was all so new. I think it was like, what was it, a week before?
End of February they came out.
So it was literally, within days, we were going to FinCom, we were like, we need to figure this out. We had left FinCom with the understanding that myself, the chair, would speak to the chair of FinCom to talk about what were we looking to do, what did the budget look like, and what were going to be the next steps in terms of the remaining funds and what was needed. And then we left, we didn't take any votes, and we all were present. We had a joint meeting because we were ready to take votes if we had to open the budget at that time and move money in and things of that nature. So I did have a discussion with the chair of FinCom after looking through, we went through their books, so Dr. Ab, Christine Zuko, myself, just to look at what we had. And I spoke to him. So what we are going to talk about this evening is the Chapter 70 state aid and opening this FY24 budget to vote as a school committee. We'll make a motion on opening that and adding Chapter 70 funds of the FY24 budget, and go from there. And then we will, respect FinCom's position with the remainder of the funds that we're going to have from the Chapter 70 and what they wish to do with that. I hope I'm capturing this correctly. But, so I hope you guys kind of understand, because that was a long FinCom meeting. I think we left at like 11 that night. It was really long. But given that I had an action item out of that meeting, that's been completed. Christine was very helpful in giving some information and insight on that. So what I'm going to ask is if you can walk us through the state of the state and to kind of tell them kind of what came up and how things arose with special ed, and we didn't see it coming. And this Chapter 78, which is meant for special education, it came from actually, I keep saying Chapter 70, we should say Student Opportunity Act money because it came out of the Student Opportunity Act. And this is money that came from Student Opportunity Act, and it's stuff that, had we known that 4.9 million was going to be additional to that calculation, we would have just created our budget with that money in it. But because of what the state saw as statistics for the school district in terms of low income, ELL speaking populations, our special education enrollments and the needs, other factors, again, we got a lot of money that came in from the state, but they also raised the bar for what we would be for net school spending, where we'd need to be. So it's just important. This is Student Opportunity Act money, and we probably need to get used to saying that. But anyway, so can I hand it to you, and then after I'm going to make whatever motions that need to
Yeah,
be
so
made.
you hit it on, nail on the head. It's just the Student Opportunity Act is to address the Chapter 70 formula to correct it. They just can't, they're doing it over a period of time, okay? So, the main thing is that, I know that the school committee's committed to help offset the health insurance deficit, which is $2,077,676. And then, in my opinion, we really need to ask for the 2.5 million for more than one reason. And like Sandra had said, this money is geared for ELL, low income, and special education students. So, right now, we are over $1 million in the hole for special education transportation. Several factors. We have more special education students that need to be transported, and we are using 13 different vendors. And some of them are gouging us, and we have no choice because there isn't anything out there for us. So we have to transport these kids. So Martha does a great job of getting prices and quotes, but they are just, some of them are like $600 a day. So times 180 days, that's a lot of money. So that's how that came about, and it's, and all of that's encumbered. So in my opinion, I think that we need to increase it by the $1 million and then 15% on that for just inflation. Because that's what we think, that's what I project is gonna happen, because they're all gonna increase their prices next year, because they can. And then we have the special education contracted services, right now, is over by about $250,000. So I suggested that we put another $350,000 into the budget next year for contracted services, which is, contracting out with different services that the kids need that we don't do, can't have, there's no one in-house to do it. Like OT, PT, we might not have anybody, or if we can't get a nurse one-on-one, we have to go outside and hire a contracted service to do that, depending on what's written in the child's IEP. And as the SPED population continues to increase, you're going to see increased costs for these IEPs, and if we can't do it in district, we have to contract it out. And then the same with the out-of-district special education tuitions. I think that it was mentioned at a school committee meeting that they anticipate a 14% increase in special education tuition next year. So I put an additional $775,000, I think, should go towards out-of-district tuition. We might see reimbursement at some point for that through circuit breaker, but that can be reimbursed from anywhere from 60 to 80%. Mm-hmm. And they're saying 75% for next year. That's what they're telling us right now. So the other area is ELE, the supplies and services. Well, the ELE population, as we know, is increasing, and that's by part of the Student Opportunity Act is used for. So I suggest that we put 75,000 in there because they're over on that this year already. So I think they're over by about 25,000. But as that population increases, we want to make sure we have enough supplies and services. So I suggest 75,000. And then in the maintenance area, I suggest 50,000 because the services at the high school, like the turf field, irrigation, they're coming off warranty after 3 years. And we had originally thought we reduced the budget and we were going to use the facilities revolving. So we're going to return this back to the general fund budget, and so we can leave it in the facilities. We want to be able to keep the money in the revolving account. So I would highly recommend to vote $2.5 million to increase our budget next year, and in the health trust, $2.4 million. Well, the numbers, you have the numbers right there, the exact numbers.
So I think we probably have a couple of questions
Sure.
that we probably want to ask, and then I'll make a motion. I think we need one motion, and I'll make that when this is over. But, so you had mentioned that a lot of these accounts are over, which is scary. So that will be part of the May, when you make some adjustments, will we see some of the
Yes.
funds moving? So that,
Absolutely, yep.
that makes sense to the, to folks on the school committee, that you'll see that in May, how that stuff is being changed in the accounts. And basically, this $2.5 million is obviously covering this. It's not FTEs, we're not adding people. In fact, we didn't hire
Paris?
36 people, because we had to stop based on what was happening effective in December, January, when we started to hear about the healthcare crisis, but then also the special education, transportation, you were aware that it hit the red early, and I guess raised the alarms internally. We weren't aware of that, so I think that when we were doing our budget and looking at that and approving it, we probably would have had different discussions about adding more money to the budget. So I don't think we can also predict that with special education, that you'd have increases like this.
It's crazy.
Yeah, this is,
I don't
Katie,
think I've
never
ever seen this
seen?
in 20 years.
Yeah.
For transportation, but it's a national problem. It's a Commonwealth problem, the state problem, but it's also a national problem, because there's just not enough transportation companies out there. So what's happening is, these little small, I say mom and pop, they buy a van, and, we vet them out, and they basically, they know, we're at their mercy. So because we need, if the child has in their IEP, we have to transport them to and from, or even from, even within district, we have to transport them if the program that they're going to is not in where their school is, or where their school would be. So, and as that population increases, if it's on the IEP, we have to transport them. We don't have any choice when it comes to special education. And it's very volatile, special education, as you know. And I think that's the main reason why the Student Opportunity Act, is they realize that this is happening, so they're
Right.
trying to correct it, to give us enough money to run the school as we should for all of the population,
Well, it's the parent, right, that the
Yeah.
Student Opportunity Act
Yes.
saw this coming. It's for what, 3 years or something? They're
I think
kind of
it's till
making,
2027.
yeah, they're making like corrections because of
Mhm.
all this, and they're seeing that all
Mhm.
those increases.
And the poverty level went from 47.7 this year, and they're anticipating it being 51% next year. So we went from the group number 8 to group number 9.
Wow.
That's big.
And the jump to 8 was big, right?
Yeah.
When we jumped, from the year before, it was
Yes.
pretty big, because
Yep.
we got that additional.
Mhm.
And I don't think, things are required by the school district and the school committee to fund, but we're not funded by the state for everything that they require. So there's a lot of requirements.
Yes.
So that's the other thing. So when people look at the budget and say it's a big budget, it's important to note that we don't do things that we're not required to do. So there's a lot that we have to do. And with Student Opportunity Act funds, this is like an opportunity for them to come in and try to help and know and recognize that, there's a lot coming down the pipeline, and we need to correct. But they're also raising the bar for districts. They're
Right.
also saying, if you're looking at where you are with your required net school spending, they're raising that bar every year. The required net school spending might be at this number 2 years ago it was here, but then when they gave us that chunk of money, they also raised the required net school spending, and they made it hard to keep, to stay where we were, and then they've done it again, and they'll continue to do that, and that's the hard part
Yeah,
about it.
Yeah, this year, I think they raised the bar of 5 million, and next year they raise it
Wow.
6 million?
6.3 for 24.
6.3 million, so,
It's crazy.
oh, I have it right here.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so last year it was increased by for just over 5 million, and this is 6.3 million
Sure.
for 24
Wow. Okay.
for net school spending. But they didn't give us.
It was 4.2 last year. They raised it by 5 million, but only gave us 4.2.
Yeah, and this, next year, they're giving us 4.9, but they raised the bar 6.3.
Ugh. You see what I mean? It's like, I don't think there's like that picture that bar keeps getting raised, so it's like you're trying to catch up, but we have to continue to add on, and you can't fall below the net school spending requirement.
Right.
So, anyway, no.
You never would want to, you wouldn't be able to run a school district.
No. You can't even when you're low, at where we are, which we now have realized you can't even at 14%, which is where we would fall if we didn't take any of this money. We're now realizing, looking at all of the new requirements and the special education stuff that's starting to come over the past month. It's crazy. I mean, I'm in the financial industry, it's just crazy, and I've been looking at all of it.
And inflation too, I mean,
Yeah.
inflation is high also.
So, by not adding, so where we were, I just want to kind of note the net school spending averages, and where we are within our district in comparison to other districts. So in FY '23, Stoughton was at 25%. There's a lot of factors that go into that number. And then Canton was at 49.8% above net school spending. We were at 25. And it's just important to look at the different districts, what they're at, and then where we are. Easton was at 27%. I think they climbed above us for the first time ever. They went above us on the net school spending, above net school spending number. Randolph is at 29.9%, above our 25% number. Sharon's at 49.8%. Brockton's at 1.9% above net school spending. Avon's at 51.8% above net school spending, so Stoughton is at the lowest by taking the, what we had last year, because that bar was raised, and because of the requirements, it costs more money, and that's what's starting to happen. Given that in 2024, the amount of money of 4.9, if we did not put any of that money into the budget, we would go to 14% net school spending, above net school spending, and adding this $2.5 million will only bring us to 17% above net school spending. But again, as I mentioned at FinCom, we're willing to do that and make that sacrifice for the town, because we also recognize that there's a need right now, and sometimes everybody's going to pull up their sleeves and make those decisions as a team. So, so I wanted to kind of state all that, because adding that 2.5 brings it to 17, which is something. I'm very nervous about, I'm very nervous about the school district, and I'm nervous about the budget next year. I'm nervous about the budget in the next 5 years. I'm nervous that, inflation occurs, things happen, and as things roll over, we need to start building back to get to that 30% above net school spending. We're seeing the impact all of a sudden. So anyway, does anybody have any comments or any questions for Christine on this?
Hi.
Hi.
I might know the response, but I just wanted to get more clarification on the transportations. You said there was 13 vendors?
Yeah, it's either 13 or 14 vendors now.
So is it the ones that we currently have, that you have the capacity for the increase?
Correct.
And that's why we had the.
Right, because, yeah, we had to add more because across the Commonwealth, the special education population is rising, not in Stoughton. So, and of course, due to the pandemic, you couldn't get a van to save your life. I don't know if it's still, the lead time was like 18 months. So I don't know what it is now. So that's why these other small companies literally came out of the woodwork, because they knew there was a need. And they charge way more than like North River or, one of the other big ones that we use.
And I'm trying to tie the numbers. So for the third sheet, where you have the 2.9 million amount for the added STM, what does that tie to?
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
So this was added at special town meeting. This was when we added that money
Oh, the
at the
2.9,
special
yeah.
town meeting. And
Yeah,
it's just showing what was expended and then what wasn't. And the adjustment of that $733,000 is by those positions they could not fill, that aren't filling, and they're saving us right now.
Right.
They're saving us
There's
by
savings,
here.
so we can cover the cost of the three places I just mentioned, special education transportation, special education contracted services, and ELE services.
Okay.
Hence why we need to put that 2.5, because we can't even fill the, we need the money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't know what sheet you were looking at, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the last
I heard
one.
STM, I'm like, wait. You have any questions, Catherine?
No.
It's like a
Taking
gloomy
it all in.
subject. We didn't all
That's a
expect
lot.
this. We just came out of nowhere. We didn't know, so. Any questions?
No.
Any questions, Katie?
So all these were not,
We're not filled, the ones here. So the ones that weren't filled, the paras we had to stop hiring, and I don't know how many we have open from the older positions, but, those, and then the one that wasn't, the ones that weren't filled are in this column, whatever the zeros are. Looks like here, Dr. Ab, the math specialist is a retirement,
Yes, so we'll hire at a lower rate.
so we probably need to, we just need that in the notes.
because there's a need for all of what's here. And actually, the paras, I know that there's a need for more paras too.
How many paras do we not have filled right now? Would you mind someone answering us? Like how many? I asked earlier, so I'm hoping that you guys have the answer.
Well, no, aside from these, how many open special education paras do we have?
Between 15 and 20.
Oh, my.
Is it
It's
on
very
the
hard to
first
fill
page?
them.
26?
So
No, those are the ones that are currently in the budget that we're not hiring this year, so we can cover the deficit of the special education costs as well as the ELE account.
I can provide a little clarification, I think it might help. There's two classifications. So one is the first and second grade paras. We had budgeted for 30 of those. We only filled 4 of those positions, and so we held on to the rest of the money to help out. The rest of them are the special education paraprofessionals, and we've had a very hard time at all levels, preschool, elementary, middle school, filling those open positions. And so those aren't on here, those are in the budget, but we're having a hard time filling those positions as well.
So we already had 15 to 20 that were open and we couldn't fill?
It might be less than that at this point, it might be a dozen, but at one point it was almost 20.
Is it because of the pay? I'm just trying to ask.
Well, I just don't really know. That's probably part of it. But I can't say that that's the only factor of why we're having a hard time. I think everyone's having a hard time filling paraprofessional positions. But I think part of it is the pay, because some of them are paid below minimum wage. So their contract comes up next year, so
Yeah.
who's ever negotiating that might want to.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about negotiations in a public meeting, so.
No, I was just
Well,
wondering why we're having such trouble
I think we
hiring
don't
the
pay
paras.
enough, if you want the truth. I think that
That's a big part of it.
it should be competitive to other towns. And they do a lot. They're in the trenches. They're doing work that is extremely difficult. I mean, Katie.
Yep.
And I think that I'm going to be quiet now.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
I
gonna say
just-
anything else, because
I just think it's important that the future committee tries to help out with getting more paras, because I know that there's a need for it.
maybe we should just start with filling what we have, and then I understand why those aren't there, and then those are kept, but, anyway, I'm gonna, just so shocked by the budget, honestly, that it's disappointing. Okay, so with that being said, are there any other questions on this before I'm gonna make a motion? Any questions?
I just have a question.
Are we going to have to go through a special town meeting to get this fund, or is these funds are available to us?
This is available for FY '24 to open our budget.
Okay.
The motion I'm going to make, that's what we talked to FinCom about. All of a sudden, it's something you can do. We've been told for I don't know how long that we had to go to special town meeting, and it was interesting because the previous superintendent stated we didn't have to because it would be funding that would be available in time to go into the FY '24 budget, especially because this is an estimate. So this 4.9, $4,944,752 will come in higher because it always comes in higher. So this is an estimate, so they always come in a little higher, give and take. That's why we always go to special town meeting with like $70,000 article, and we asked for that overage, this overage, that overage. But we were always told by a previous superintendent that she had stated, you can put it, this is what the town accountant says we have to do, we'll just do it, whatever, we'll get the money regardless, and we'll plan for it, and know we'll give the kids the best education we can, and we'll make sure the staff's taken care of and all those things. So we always kind of planned for it, but it wasn't officially in there until we did the article. So now that's changed, and we're going to FinCom. And I guess I'll quote Dr. Rab, you told me that you spoke to the town accountant, and he stated this is considered revenue for '24, so we can use it. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a motion to open the FY '24 school committee budget and add $2.5 million of the Student Opportunity Act funding that came through Chapter 70, and submit a memo to the financial committee and let them know that we request that to happen.
I'll second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. I would also like to thank Select Board Chair Deborah Roberts, Steve Cavey, for getting on a phone call earlier today to talk about this and them showing their support for this request and recognizing that it was a need for the schools. And I appreciate their recognizing the Student Opportunity Act money is money for students, and they want to see that going to the schools, and Chapter 70 money coming to the schools. So I do want to thank them for that. We had a call with Bill Rowe and Mr. Coulter as well, so I appreciate everyone's time and being able to help, and it was a very healthy discussion, so I just wanted to note that. It was appreciated. Okay, so there's that piece, the remainder of that Student Opportunity Act money, FinCom, they know what they're doing. As I said before, they'll figure out how to allocate that money. We have all faith in them, right, Katie?
Yes, we do.
Right, Catherine? All right. Okay, so there's that. So that's it. You're done. How do you
Thank
feel
you.
about that? You ready to go home?
I'm just really happy that it's going to be added to next year's budget. That makes me feel much more comfortable when I'm leaving here.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
It's the truth. I didn't feel very comfortable. Now I feel a lot better for the new person that's coming in.
Yeah, and for the kids and then for the staff. No,
And for the staff, too. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I
Thank you,
hounded you a
Christine.
lot, so thanks.
Mrs. Gropey, if I could make one very brief comment. I just want to thank you for your advocacy, too, for working with town officials and getting this done. Thank you very much.
Oh, sure, thank you. Yep, no problem, thank you. All right, so, have a great night, thank you. We're going to move on to the South Elementary School Preliminary Educational Program presentation for approval. So, we're going to have everyone come down. I think we can get 3 seats down, and then we can, you sure, come on, Dom.
You can see me.
They can't, no.
You're the show.
So we have South School Principal Jacob Dorr and Wilkins, I almost called it West Wilkins Principal, Katie Monahan. Thank you for coming. All right.
If I could say a quick word of introduction and then
Sure.
turn it right over to them. Thank you, Mrs. Gropey, members of the committee. So on April 4th, the school building committee has to submit what's called the preliminary design plan. It's one of the first deliverables to the MSBA. Part of that is the new elementary building project feasibility study preliminary educational program. It is 70 pages. I asked Mr. Dorr to read pages 1 through 35, and Mrs. Monahan to read pages 36 through 70, so.
Oh, great.
I'm joking, obviously.
Buckle up. We're going to a commercial break.
They will give a brief presentation on it. As you can see at the beginning, this was the work of a committee of 30 teachers and community members and many, many people in the district to put this together, and they'll give us a 10-minute presentation on what it's all about.
Sure. Probably not 10 minutes, but, so, thank you for taking the time to look through this prior to the meeting. Obviously, you can see this quite comprehensive, 73 pages in length. We followed the MSBA guidelines in how we put this together, so it was a very prescripted format that we had to follow. And we also went to other districts that had recently done education plans as well. We looked at Westwood Public Schools and Wellesley Public Schools, and then we obviously looked at Principal Miller's education plan for the high school. And that kind of helped guide us in determining what kind of language to use and what kinds of things to put in the plan. So those are some of the different things we did prior to actually digging in and writing it. The beginning of the education plan breaks down the facilities and how they're used at both the Wilkins and the South, and in many respects it highlights some of the limitations that we have in those buildings because of the facilities and how they are now. So in writing this is a blueprint for what we feel an ideal education would be for any elementary student in Stoughton. So because there are limitations in those two buildings, part of those sections also then details if these were able to be fixed, this is what we would have. The very end of this document gets into a lot more detail with specific visioning for a new building. And again, this document is going to be the guide for whatever new building is built, and this is applicable for any of the options that end up being voted on, whether it's a renovation project for the current building, a new South School building, or a larger elementary school for the town. All of the information in here would be applicable to any of those three options. So Mr. Dorr is actually going to go through some of the more specific things that we have in the vision, some of the exciting stuff that we have, and then we're going to open it up to questions, and between those of us here, we'll field those questions as appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I get the fun part. I get to talk about the kind of the exciting portion of what could be in a new elementary school project. So we did break it down to like 5 major salient points that we took away from all the visioning sessions, from the feedback from the community. It was great to see how interested all the different parties involved were in kind of expressing what they would like to see in a new elementary school. So I think one of the biggest things was the idea of an upper and lower school with what we call like grade level neighborhoods. The idea of neighborhoods and having students together with all of their service providers in one area has become very popular with new building projects, but having the ability in either a single school replacement or a larger school to have an upper and lower distinction between schools, so like a K to 2 versus a 3 to 5 area of the building allows you to really cater needs to different students in those areas. And so again, like I said, all those different supports would be located within those neighborhoods. So your special education teachers, your EL teachers, your paraprofessionals, their supplies, all those things would be located within those neighborhoods. So, like at the South School now or at the Wilkins now, all those people are kind of all over the place due to the current size of our buildings and, orientation of those buildings. And so this would definitely be definitely a wanted change from what we heard from a lot of stakeholders. Another big one was the use of outdoor spaces and the idea of the building as the teacher. And so a lot of what we heard was that at least the South community, but also the Stoughton community really valued the surrounding. So being able to have like the woodsiness of the South School and be able to be outside and take your students outside to learn and having that reflected inside the building as well. That was really important. Having those spaces for recess, having those distinct areas for younger students and older students to be able to go outside and have those opportunities was, we heard that a lot as we talked to teachers, families, students. The one thing we were really excited about that we heard a lot as well was having the school be a community resource center and being able to have that building community accessible at like nights and weekends, but not infringe on the learning areas of the school. So be able to orient the building in a way where, you know, you could enter and be in the learning commons and have access to the gym for, you know, after school or like night rec opportunities, have access to the cafetorium and things like that. And they would all be sized in a way which actually made them usable for like larger events. And so that was something people were really excited about, having it be a huge draw for the community as a whole, not just the students who would be attending that school. Next was just having authentic collaboration and meeting space. So one thing that we do not have a lot of currently at either building is space to meet with either parents and IEP meetings, staff or faculty meetings, just different types of rooms and offices and just appropriate places for students to learn in different sizes outside of a classroom. And so that was something that everyone really wants and needs and is really integral in what is currently needed in education, and for students having small breakout spaces, having opportunities to learn in different ways. So that was another huge factor in the plan. And then finally was this idea of a learning commons, which has become really, really, really popular in like new school construction and kind of the new age library that is very STEM focused and has an opportunity for student learning in a lot of different ways. It's central, it's really the heart of the building. And so we talked pretty extensively about what that would look like within the plan as well. Our idea that we both, you know, were a little obsessed with was the idea of having a STEM space above that learning commons and kind of really centralize that learning commons and STEM opportunities for kids. So as you can tell as you're
visioning
reading,
was a lot of fun.
we were really excited
You're
about
very
what this
excited, I
project
can
would
tell,
look
both
like.
giggling.
So,
It's like Katie and I giggle sometimes.
I mean, it's 73 pages, we had to work a lot together.
we spent a lot of time together on this, yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah.
I'll start down this end, and then we'll just kind of make our way, just so everybody gets a chance to.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for putting this together. I think it was long, but it was also like enormously readable. Like it was easy to understand and easy to like see both the sort of the trajectory that got us to the current state, as well as like how this fits into the bigger district plans, how we're responding to the needs of the schools, and just like where we are now, what services we can provide now, and what could be possible in the future. So I just like super comprehensive, would really recommend that like anybody who's interested in this read it, because I was like, my husband was like, you have to read all that? And I was like, I get to read all this. It's awesome.
Did you do it over the long
Thanks,
weekend?
Lindsay.
Yeah, no, I actually like, and I think part of it too is just like, I'm new to the school committee. It was like just helpful, like context building. So I just, thank you. So I will stop geeking out now, and I just want to ask, like,
You're giggling as much as they were.
I know.
Like, it's so funny.
So, in the beginning, you mentioned that the high school's working on sort of the vision of the graduate as part of the NEASC accreditation. So I was wondering, like, is this something, and is this plan going to be revised based on that, or is that just going to be incorporated later in the process? Is this sort of like a, like once this is submitted, it's like final, and then the vision of the graduate gets incorporated later in the process, or do we go back to this and revise? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, your
Okay.
question does. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, it's probably important to note this is a draft.
Yeah.
So this document can indeed change as we find need for it to change. But I think that this is comprehensive enough, and it's written in such a way that it will serve as a really great foundation for that vision of a graduate that we've already been sitting on committees to kind of help write and design. We took a lot of that in consideration when we wrote this. So I don't know if I answered your question or
Yeah,
not, but
no,
okay.
I think that
Yeah.
makes sense. Thank you. And then I just wanted to say too, I think like, obviously with the budget conversation we just had, like we've seen a lot of evolving needs of the district, and like the obvious one is technology. Like when the Stoughton Wilkins were built, nobody could have anticipated like the role that technology was going to play, never mind like special education needs from a global pandemic and like English learner needs. So I just think that like this orientation around grade level neighborhoods with integrated service provision is like going to be
huge.
really important, especially as the district continues to evolve and our population continues to grow and change and have different needs. So I just appreciate how this is not only like present looking, but also forward looking. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
You loved it, didn't you?
I did.
That's awesome.
So
unlike Lindsay, I was happy that we had the snow day last Tuesday, so I could finish it now. I did love it. I did like it. I will have to say that even with the high school, it took me a year to like go through that. This didn't. This took me a couple of weeks. And I want to say that they're both lovely written. But I just, what Lindsay said about especially with the children nowadays, that they need to get out of the classroom. They need to have different places to learn, or just to chill out or away. And I think that you guys captured that, and I was, thank you.
I think one thing that both of us realized was how much we didn't realize the need for a new building until we started writing this document. I think we've made do with what we have and haven't really thought much about it.
Right.
And then when you really started digging in and seeing what the potential would be for a new building, and then therefore what changes can be made in the existing buildings that, you know, will still be functioning as elementary schools, it was very eye-opening how far we need to go, but we're getting there, and this is a great blueprint for that.
And I think that you captured so many great things in here that I was excited. Maybe not as excited as Lindsay, but I was very excited, and like this needs to be shared with the community. Like, I think it needs to get out more so that they could have the vision of the new school and everything like that, and how much of a benefit it would be to Stoughton.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think what's wonderful about it is that you incorporate not just the curriculum-based piece of it, but it's really, you brought in key folks for fine arts, and, you know, it's really important for creativity at those ages and having fun while you're learning and having those other spaces to be able to, like, to have fun and all that. So this was just, it's different. It's interesting, Katie, so like, because she read the full high school one, I did not, and
I just have to be fair, it did not take me a year.
No,
It just, I
you
got
didn't.
it late, so I was doing other things, so.
Yes, but she read it, and it is different, and it has to be different. And there's, you know, we're talking about different age groups, and they're both amazing. And I thought the high school one, and we know, we brag about that, and we love it. This was amazing. So kudos to everyone that was involved in writing this, to you two for kind of leading the charge, but just for everyone that was part of this, because it was wild, right? To be able to read what younger K-5 students in Stoughton are going to be able to have. They haven't had that in I don't know how long. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone who worked on this, you guys, and, you know, everybody who contributed to this, because there's a lot of work in here, and I echo this, that the community needs to read this, because when you read this, you know that school needs to be renovated, replaced. There's just no way that building is going to last us another 5-10 years. Like, the amount of stuff that children need, it's amazing. I also think that, you know, echoing and building on what they've said, and what you've said too, that you've had to make do with buildings that were not built for this. And I think that actually benefited you in this, because the spaces in here are so flexible. They're going to be used for multiple purposes within the school day. They're going to be able to be used multiple purposes down the road. And I think that's really important for the community to know that this building is not being built for this particular moment. This is a building that's being built for the future. Not just the education plan behind it, but just the space itself is going to be able to take us forward for many, many years, because Stoughton's probably not going to rebuild this building for another 50, 75 years. And this building could definitely last us that long. Thank you.
Hi, guys. Also, thank you for drafting this and working hard on it. It is well written, easy to follow, and understandable. I appreciate that you guys spoke about like the safety and security team that is going to be used by the community. I just wanted to know, aside from it being separated, is there any additional, I guess, safety measures you're going to put in place in terms of how the community is going to use this, or access or authorizations in that capacity? Is that another document that's going to happen, or is that going to be incorporated here so that it's a draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on what ends up being the final
The design.
proposed model, right?
Okay.
And the design. I think that would dictate how those spaces are used. I think in conjunction with like the superintendent's office to see how they would like those spaces to be used. But I think, you know, generally speaking, it's a school during the day, right? That's the primary focus. But then it would be, you know, I think it would work the same way that permitting works now and things like that, to have access. And, you know, ideally those other spaces would be closed off, and then you would have the ability to enter kind of those communal spaces at,
Right.
during different times.
Many of the designs that we've had an opportunity to look at that kind of replicate some of what we wrote in here show that some of those main areas of the school, like the gym and the cafeteria, are indeed separate. Like there are doors that will lock, that will prevent people from being able to pass through into the areas of the building where the classrooms are. And that is something that was echoed by many stakeholders, that is an important part of the design, because we want this building to be able to be accessed by the community, but we don't want to have to necessarily worry about the community getting into other parts of the school. So that is something that when we get into the part of the phase where we're really looking and digging into the actual design, that we will make sure is in those plans, because it's important to all of us.
Because I think with the high school, I mean, it's a great question. Because when we're looking at the high school, like going in and wanting to use like one section but not having people roam in another section, it's just open. So it's like, hopefully you guys are talking about lessons learned with that building, and if you want to, good. Yeah, that's great.
And obviously,
That's great.
the entryways, you know, there's a lot of security features that are just part of new buildings right now, and all of those, you know, features will be absolutely part of the way this new school is designed in terms of like a foyer area that's secure, that will not, before entry is allowed into the main part of the building, and all of that would be incorporated into this new school.
Aside from just entry, I'm concerned about, once you get them in, making sure you get them out.
Right.
I want them to exit as well.
Yeah.
So
There will be doors.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate this, and I think that the kids are absolutely gonna love it, and I love the fact that it's so flexible with the spaces, and you also incorporate like colors and stuff like that for
Yeah.
the kids, so
Yeah.
they're gonna be excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's it for our presentation.
Great, so this comes to the point where you need us to do something. Dom's like, yes, I do. Do you, so, yeah, so you want us,
A
so,
motion to accept the
Yeah.
draft education plan for the elementary school.
okay.
Just a quick point.
Do you want to give him the microphone?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
It's okay.
Should know better. Just a quick point that we'll be submitting this April 4th, I believe is the date, to the MSBA. It will be reviewed by the MSBA's committee, and I believe there is a member of DESE on the committee, and there'll be challenges similar to what we had with the high school project. So, and then we just basically, justify the plan. There might be great suggestions too that will be added. So this is, as it seems, it's a draft. So just to be aware that, but they did a great job. The principals here, and all the people that were involved in the many vision sessions and community outreach that we had. So
That's great. It was a lot of work on all your parts, so this is great. Katie?
So I'll make a motion to accept the draft of the new elementary building project feasibility study, educational plan.
Preliminary educational program.
Yes.
Second.
Gotcha. All right, quick on the draw. My back was turned. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm surprised you didn't do that.
I'm on the committee, I feel like I have to second it.
Okay, well, Lindsay was very excited. I wanted a little louder of an aye, but she came through. She came through after.
Jazz hands.
She did. That's great. Thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you for all your hard work on that.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the health insurance plan design MOA approval. It's the memorandum of agreement approval. I received this, unfortunately, the day before our last school committee meeting, so we weren't able to discuss it. It wasn't on the agenda. So this was due to the health insurance crisis that we had and trying to get all of the different unions at the table to talk about the insurance co-pays, rates, all of that, and to kind of talk about what are we going to do to try to help to move things forward. And then I had received an email that the school committee is required to sign it as well. While none of us were invited to be part of that, we weren't part of it. It was my understanding, Dr. Rabb, that you were on the invite, but that Christine, our business manager, was sent to go.
Correct, yes.
Regardless, I had the opportunity to speak to Lisa in the HR department at Town Hall, who was extremely helpful in sharing some information. I was actually quite impressed that this happened so quickly, to be honest. So I forgot my notes when I talked to her, so I'm really sorry. She was so helpful, but I just wanted to highlight a couple things, and I wanted to bring it to the school committee, as I don't sign anything on behalf of the school committee without the school committee's authority and approval to do so. So basically, this is first time in a very, very long time, they have like a subcommittee, like a working group with all the unions to talk about the insurance working group. And this is the first time in a very long time that all of them actually showed up to the table. I heard there was tons of union representation at all of these. There was a lot of interaction, and it was just a really nice interaction that they were able to kind of facilitate at the town hall. So I kudos to them for being able to do that. That's a feat in itself, right? To get different opinions and getting people to sit at the table. They were able to kind of work out a plan and all agree to what that's going to be for that plan. So you're going to see Exhibit A, Stoughton Health Insurance Plan Design. So in that plan design that they approved and they voted on, there was like increases in the deductibles. And they all agreed on what those increases were for. It's almost as though I look at it like everyone put their hand in the middle of the pile and said, we're all in this and we're all going to do what we can to help Stoughton. So you'll see that there are just some examples there of the plan design changes. And then also they added an opt-out piece to it where you can opt out and you can get like a reimbursement for opting out, which is less for insurance, costs less because now we're not carrying them and paying for that full amount. So it's $3,000 per plan per year for an individual and $6,000 per plan per year for a family member. So that's very smart, and I thought that was kind of that's a great idea, and it was nice that they were able to kind of agree to that as well. So that was pretty good. Lindsay, it's not as long as the other book that you read. I'm sure you read through this when it was like a quick read, weren't as excited. But what I'm asking is for someone to, I don't want to make the motion because it's for me, but if someone can make a motion to authorize me to sign this MOA, that would be great. I'm the last one to sign it, so they're waiting on me, unfortunately. Lindsay, I know you're excited.
everyone-
You want to do it?
Sure. I move to authorize Sandra Gerby to sign this on behalf of the school committee, or sign the memorandum of agreement
By and between the town of Stoughton and,
by and between the town of Stoughton and the Stoughton School Committee and the Library Staff Association. Do I have to read the whole thing? Local 4928.
I think so. I think we have to just make it, I don't
And
know.
Stoughton Town Hall Employees Association and Stoughton Professional/Administrative
Welcome,
Employees
Katie.
Association.
I don't even know.
And AFS CME Council 93 Public Safety Dispatch and Local 1512 International Association of Firefighters. And Stoughton Police Patrolmen's Union and Stoughton Police Superior Officers Union, Local 461, and Stoughton Public Works Association, and Stoughton Teachers Association Unit A, and Stoughton Teachers Association Unit B, and the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 791, and the Stoughton Schools Administrative Assistants Association, and the United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 1445, and the AFS CMA Council 93, Local 362, regarding health insurance.
Wow.
Wait, can you do that again? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I missed that. Do you mind? Okay,
I'll second it.
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just,
Did you read that book really fast?
but I think that going forward, I think that someone on school committee should definitely
Yes.
be on that
You
committee.
should
or
never have
whatever.
you should never be signing any memorandum of agreement between anything when it's a contractual obligation without being part of the discussions, because you shouldn't have to, you want to agree to something that you fully wholeheartedly
Right.
agree with. But again, I did get information on what they did, and this is really good for the town, to kind of keep us moving forward from the crisis that occurred. But anyway, who's in favor? Did I get a second?
I did.
You did, thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Aye.
Yes.
All right, so I will send that over tomorrow, and thank you to them for sending it over and being patient. The next item is the Stoughton Lions Club DECA $500 donation acceptance request.
The Stoughton Lions Club presented the Stoughton High School DECA chapter with a $500 donation. The donation was given with the express direction to be used toward the State Career Development Conference, which was a couple of weeks ago in Boston. We're grateful for the support of our Lions, and it helped the student and defray the cost of that trip for them. So I just ask the committee to accept that donation on their behalf.
I'll make a motion to accept the Stoughton Lions Club DECA $500 donation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The next item is the Stoughton High School sponsored trip to Italy approval request.
Thank you, Mrs. Gropey. You want me to take that one?
Yeah.
I can take that one.
Sorry.
So Mr. Gorman, a world language teacher at the high school, had been running this trip for many, many years. He stopped in 2019 because of COVID, and he wants to get back to doing them. Remember last year, we updated our policy to include that school committee approval for any overnight or out-of-state field trips. So this is coming before you. ACIS is the company that runs the field trip. They are insured. They have done these trips for many years. I know in even prior districts that I've been in, they've done these trips very successfully. They want to go next year, so it's February 16th to the 23rd in 2024, but that is subject to change, so approval this evening for the trip would be great, with the understanding the date may change a little bit. He would like to start assessing interest among the students. And so we let him know that in order to assess interest, he needed to get the school committee's approval. So he's excited about it. It is a trip to Italy. It's a 7-day trip. They would be going to Sorrento and Rome and then departing. So it's a wonderful opportunity for our students if they want to attend.
Okay. So you need a motion to approve the Stoughton High School sponsored trip to Italy through the world language.
Do you know what ACIS stands for?
Not off the top of my
It's
head.
a company, right?
It's the name of the company. It's an acronym for the company. I can find out and get exactly what it is.
And are there any qualifications for the students, or is it just based on interest?
Based on interest.
That's all?
It's
And
based
then
on-
are they doing any fundraisers for this class?
I don't think so, because this really is if the family is interested in sending their student.
They do
So, do they
fundraisers
do-
for these, yes,
for
they
the Italy
do.
trip?
Like
Okay.
they do for the DC trip.
Okay.
They can do cookie fundraisers and things like
Okay.
that, that can make up part of the cost.
Yeah.
They do
Fair enough.
fundraisers.
Okay. So part of your approval would be
Yes.
approving the fundraisers, ability to do fundraising as well. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve that Stoughton High School sponsored trip to Italy and for the fundraising. Good.
Second.
All
All
right.
right. Coming bird back.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And these are insured through the company.
Yep.
It's insured because that's how the DC trip is at the middle school. If you purchase the insurance, you can get fully reimbursed. Unfortunately, Katie and I, we had students that were supposed to go to the DC trip
I know.
and did not. And I don't know why I bought the insurance. I don't even do it on an airline ticket, but I did and got fully reimbursed. But that was quite a,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so the next is the approval of the minutes for February 22nd, February 28th, and March 1st.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of February 22nd, 23rd, 2023.
Is there any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Did I second it?
No, I don't know.
Second.
All right,
All in
thanks.
favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that's the 22nds. The 28ths,
Make a motion to accept the February 28th.
is there any discussion?
I had a question on page 4, paragraph F. About halfway down, it said that our required net school spending increased to 6.3 million. Is it increased to or increased by?
What did you want me to say, do? Sorry.
I just, on page 4, paragraph F, about halfway down the left-hand side, talking about our increase, the $4.9 million that we received in addition, and then the required net school spending, was it increased to 6.3 or increased by?
Increased by 6.3
okay.
million higher.
So just one correction there to increase by.
Thank you. Good.
Yes, that's it.
So the motion would be to approve the revised February 28, 2023 minutes. Katie?
Oh, yeah, as amended?
I'll approve that. All in favor?
Aye.
Second? Aye.
Aye.
You tell we're tired.
Aye.
I am
Aye.
tired, I'm sorry.
Yeah, long day. Long day. And then we have March 1st,
They were over
but I
here.
don't,
Did we not get them in the other packet?
did we get March 1st?
No, it was on your table. too.
All right, so I didn't look at those ones.
And there's one edit for that we.
Yeah, I see the same edit on page 3.
Why don't you save it for the next time?
Yeah, number 7, increased, the same thing, the increase to should be increased by 6.3 million.
Are you talking about the March 1st ones?
Yeah, March 1st, that's as far as I got.
It's
Why don't we
also-
table the March 1st, because we didn't get the copy, to the meeting next week? So in the March 1st meeting minutes, we can just give
Table,
everybody
okay.
time to review. Is that okay?
Great, thank you. I
Yeah,
only
of
got
course,
through
of
there.
course, yeah. Okay. Moving on, the superintendent goals progress, if we can just walk through that quickly, that'd be
Sure.
great.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
So I had 4 goals, and the first one was around communication, and was probably had the most pieces to it, so I will go quickly, but certainly if there's any questions. The first one was to provide training on the Remind app. Our Director of Technology took care of that last summer, and the coaches have been getting Remind app training. Up until even a couple of days ago, the spring coaches received Remind app training from the athletic director. We've instituted virtual backpacks at each school. They're available on the website. And we've also, last year we had a couple of snafus with some calendaring.
Do we have something we're supposed to be following? Sorry.
I didn't have something specific, but I can certainly give you the mid-cycle review. I did make copies of it. I thought I was just going to give an oral report, but I can certainly give you.
Okay, no, I just wasn't sure what, okay.
If
It's-
you
it-
have it, I'll take it.
I-
Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry.
This is all around the first goal. So it was reinstating the school backpacks and implementing the district-wide calendar. Last year, we had a couple of snafus with some calendaring that was double booked. And so we put a district-wide calendar on the website so families can see all the different events that are happening at every school. And we've also started having regular calendar meetings, particularly with the high school principal and the athletic director and the fine arts director, Mr. Mange. They met on February 8th to do some calendaring for the spring, and they have another meeting scheduled for April 5th. And so they'll be meeting on an ongoing basis to make sure that there are no conflicts among all the different events that happen, particularly toward the end of the school year. We worked hard, Mr. Pickett worked very hard, streamlining the website, so all the school pages have the same look and feel. They look like the district website. There are common links on each one of those pages, and so people can follow them from school to school. All of our social media accounts have been updated now, so that the club advisor or the coach is the owner of the social media account, and Mr. Pickett is the backup for those. So this will provide consistency with reporting on all of our social media accounts, whether it be Facebook or Instagram.
And we have a list that's in a central location for everyone to know, right? You have like a central, well, I won't look at you, I'm supposed to, you're just sitting in the crowd, sorry.
He has it, yeah.
So there's a central location, and that way, when you leave, there's still, the new incoming superintendent will be able to track that. And it is policy. It's literally policy that only an advisor or a coach can be the owner of a club, but it has to have a social media account, but it has to be something that's approved as well. That falls within our social media policy. So we haven't been following that.
No, and so we were able to spend the better part of 2 or 3 months. Mr. Pickett worked hard to work with all the advisors and coaches to turn all of those over to the adults. So now the adults are monitoring those, and he's the backup. And he is also following all of those accounts himself to make sure that
Oh, so they were
stay.
students that had access,
They
that were
did.
running, oh, I see.
Especially the Instagram accounts. Many of the students had set those up. And so Mr. Pickett worked with the advisors and coaches to get the
passwords and credentials and so forth, so that we now are in charge of those Instagram accounts.
Did we
as well as
circulate I think it might be beneficial to circulate that that policy again, as a reminder. It's hard when years go by and the policy's old that, I think at the beginning of every school year, Mr. Ford, if you don't mind adding that to when you guys do a review before the next school year starts of what the policy is, to make sure, I mean, sometimes you just, you know what I mean, they've got so many other balls in the air that they're juggling that, you know.
Yeah, we have a standard list for all the principals in terms of the trainings they need to provide. We'll just add it to that.
Okay.
So that was the sum and substance of Goal 1.
Remind, is everybody rolled onto it now?
Yes, they should be. They've all been given training, and my understanding is Mr. Carbone, each season, has been training the coaches and just did that with the spring coaches.
Wow. Good for him.
My next goal was the student learning goal. That is completed. That was to evaluate all of the different programs that we have and make recommendations on ones to keep and ones to perhaps table or not use. And so in September, we established our Intervention and Services Impact Team with Mr. Ford helping out tremendously to review the impact or effectiveness of our programs and services that we provide to students that have addressed issues related to learning loss, social emotional needs, and gaps in academic performance. Throughout the fall, the team reviewed 42 programs. I won't read them all, but we have them all listed, and they put them all together on a spreadsheet. And then based on the relative impact of each item, as each entity, as well as their impact on the aggregate, the team recommended some to keep and some to move on from. Sample of ones we're keeping: the STARS 360 benchmarking in literacy and math and progress monitoring. All of those are important for our students' progress. ELE, elementary extended day phonics, middle school extended day literacy for our ELE students, the Rosetta Stone language acquisition software, and Envisions 2020 topic test, which is our math. And then some of these things we did move from ESSER that were into the budget, such as our Bright program at the high school, a counselor and a teacher at the high school working with counseling needs, as well as our enrichment after-school programs. And then some things we decided would expire in June of 2023, like our retired teacher tutoring, the DEAS Academies, the Castle 5 on-demand training, and Gosnold, which I know we moved to the Italian home. So this was fantastic because it really allowed the curriculum team to go through every single one of the programs that we use, evaluate them, think about them, and decide whether or not they wanted to keep them for the following year. And I think they have a much stronger opinion and a stronger now commitment to what they are using and have been able to set aside the ones that they aren't. So that's the second goal, the student learning goal. I can take questions on either one or just keep going. I want to go relatively quickly. The third one is easy. It was to streamline the quarterly accounting report. You saw that this evening. So that was the first time we have presented that quarterly report, and then that will provide a template for all future quarterly reports and financial reports.
Can we make sure that the location of all of the budget documents, including the Chapter 19 agreement, are located in a central location that our executive assistant has access to, the incoming business manager will have access to, and the superintendent will have access to?
Absolutely.
Because those are things we could not find when, in recent months, and it's important for us to have some historical, some location. I don't want to lose it when a business manager leaves.
Absolutely. We'll work on that over the next month or so. And then the last, the goal, the district improvement goal, was basically working on the triennial plan and making sure that the triennial plan was coming to fruition. And so the 3 stages of the triennial plan, there's an SEL goal, there's a special education goal, and there is an ELE goal. And I worked with the teams that are putting together the triennial plan. In terms of the SEL goal, the first goal, they have completed their training. They've looked at different SEL screeners. They've chosen an SEL screener that they would like to use. They've also chosen a behavioral intervention curriculum. You may know that with the new discipline code coming out of the state, they have to show that they've done interventions with students along the way. And so they've been able to utilize those. They are creating the scope and sequence of SEL standards, and those will be completed by the end of March. They're very close to finishing those. Their next steps for the rest of this year to finish year 1 of the triennial plan is identifying professional development opportunities specific to social and emotional learning. That's part of year 2, to be prepared for year 2, and vetting various supports for the community specific to families and staff around SEL. So a huge thank you to Amy Sareva, who's led that team and worked very hard making sure that they've kept on track and kept on the goals of the triennial plan for the first year. Carol Ann Sampson has been working on the triennial plan for the new IEP project, and she has been meeting several times with the group during the year. They have been working closely with the Department of Education to make sure that they're in line with the new IEP project. It's been a little bit later coming out of the Department of Education. They met on March 14th. They've signed up for 2 workshops hosted by the Accept Collaborative, which is one of the collaboratives we work with. And those workshops were developed by early adopters from school districts that piloted the new form. We're not one of those, but we'll be doing samples of the new form next year with some teams, and so they want to try to get it going. The second workshop focuses on the implementation and guidance to the finalized process and forms once the Department of Education has finalized the rollout date. So they're keeping up with the deadlines from the Department of Education to make sure that we're on track for the new IEP program. And finally, Dr. Quealy has been working very hard to make sure that we've implemented all of the focuses of the first year of the ELE plan. And so we've hired the EL teacher that was part of the program. We've hired a high school counselor, and we've hired paraprofessionals, part of ELE paraprofessionals, part of the program. She's also expanded the ILPs, the individual language plan requirements for EL students, and met those benchmarks. She's currently updating the scope and sequence of the ELE curriculum. She told me today they finished grades 3 and 5, and they're working on K-2 and 6 to 8. At the end of this year, they'll have K-8 done, and then next year they'll be working on the high school. So she's very excited about the progress they've made, and again, I think now she's very focused on the focused review. But I'm not only my goals, but these are district goals, and everybody involved has been working very, very hard to keep them moving forward. So that's as short as I could be.
Thank you for the update. Well, you have to give them another update in like 2 months.
Perfect.
So you guys will should get the long one. This was just, are we hitting things? So that's good. Thank you for letting us know where we are. That's good. And what will be helpful, I think, is in the goal that you have, because communication is extremely important. And can we just get, in your next superintendent update, can you please advise the families of the link of where the calendar of all the activities is, like just share with them again? I think you did it once at the beginning of the school year, but it's important for them to kind of know that it's out there. I don't think I forget, because I don't think I'm used to it.
Happy to.
I think it's really important, especially as we get towards the end of the school year and families are trying to plan graduation and kindergarten celebrations, that they know that they can look at all of that in one place.
Happy to do
Thank
that.
you for the update, Dr. Rab. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay.
I have like a process, so we had shared feedback with the chair to put together back in January, right? No?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's mid-year, that's the end-of-year evaluation. It'll go towards his evaluation,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's not
No,
part of
we're not
this
doing that
process.
now.
Got it.
No, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, just wanted to clarify.
No, thank you. No, great question, thank you. Yes, there's a year end, but with Dr. Rab leaving, I'd suggest you don't do a year end, because you would do a year end review, but it wouldn't go anywhere because he's leaving. The district doesn't give us anything, or even the mid-year at that point, resigning. So, but great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next item is, we talked about the budget, and we also need to talk about the fact that we had the business manager resign the day after our last meeting. We were aware it was going to be happening, but didn't have it, so we couldn't have announced it at the time. So, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So you had posted the position out there, and we had gotten a few people that were interested. I've heard, I went out to the MASC, I even asked our attorney, why are we not getting candidates? And it's just, I guess, a really hard time. There was already like the hiring, obviously, you're going somewhere to be a business manager, she is. We kind of are missing the boat on the hiring process, because again, it's like a month-long thing, and it takes a while. So one of the recommendations that came forward was to simply rename the position to Business Assistant Superintendent of Business and of Finance and Operations. That's what it is, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, in the hopes that we would get stronger candidates that actually have expertise that think they would fall within that criteria. And then maybe we had only 3 people apply, none of them had any experience whatsoever. And so hopefully, so what we would look to do, I would like to ask is that we submit a title change to the org structure. We rename the business manager title in the org structure to Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. And then we also, within that same motion, revise the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, what's the other?
Health and
Health and Operations, to just Human Resources of Health, Human Resources and Health. So take the operations off of that name and then shift the operations to the business manager. And what that means is, and I did, like, obviously we didn't realize, we even reached out to a prior business manager to see if he'd come back. And he said, no, he's an assistant superintendent of finance and operations. And basically, it's a standard in all districts now to have an assistant superintendent of business and of finance and operations. And you have the operations under them because there's all this criteria that you have to adhere to. So anything in terms of operations and purchase orders and things would go through the business office, and you have to, be able to ensure that everything follows what state guidelines are. So they naturally go through that. At the time, when we got rid of that other position, we just didn't know what we weren't sure what to, how to shift the operations. We had put it in that other position. But I think renaming it and leaving, today, there's a lot of duties that fall under the business manager. Human resources really wasn't there, but kind of was. So that's why we had to solidify that. And then there was just a lot of things. Procurement's a really big thing. It's an important thing. And it's something that you can get in a really lot of trouble for. And an assistant superintendent of finance and operations would be, a pro in procurement. They would be certified in procurement. And then also they'd be able to work with Joyce Husseini, who is our director of operations, who also is. And that way we can ensure a smooth thing. So I'm asking for a motion. I will make the motion to revise on the org chart those 2 names as I had stated earlier.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Can I clarify?
Yeah.
So we are, sorry, just clarifying, we're voting to change the title
Correct.
and then
titles.
reorganize, change both titles to move operations from one to the other.
Yeah.
And then are we also voting to move like the reporting structure so that operations reports?
Yeah, it's
into
just,
finance,
so
or
yes.
Is it just the title?
We'll change the title, and then because there's really nothing exists today, it'll all happen in July. We're not moving any org structure or anything yet. When we voted for the org change, it was going to be effective July because Mr. Colantonio won't start in that position. We don't have any of this stuff right now. So we're just revising the org structure that's going to go in effect in July.
Gotcha.
Makes sense? Yeah. It's a good question.
But that's the change, is that
Correct.
operations will now live in
Operations will
finance
shift
instead.
over, and then it'll make a lot more sense to have, human resources and health in one section. And then we just we were talking about assistant superintendents in breaking it out in this way. We didn't want to consider the business manager being that. It's not a pay increase, it's just a change in name. So that would be what we're going to do, is revise those 2 names. That's it. And then that'll get implemented in July, based on the org structure that we approve. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Because it's not implemented right now. It's
Yep.
not in effect yet. We don't have an HR. We really don't have, the operations is under Joyce, and she has like food services under her. She has busing under her. it's scattered everywhere. So it'll all start in July. Questions?
In addition to just basically the name change, we're revising the job description to
I will,
include
yes.
all those additional responsibilities you mentioned.
Yep, that will be, yeah, that will go with this org change. These are great questions. It's important to, because we want everything to be aligned and all the ducks in a row. And I hope that we're able to post this tomorrow and that we can actually get candidates that have experience and are able to come in and manage our budget. I know Christine Succo is gone July 1st, and we don't have the opportunity to extend her like we did Kathy Piatelli, because she took another job closer to home, and she's starting in the middle of the month. So that ship has sailed. So this is a good move for us. Okay.
Just,
So
I apologize, it's June 1st. Her last day is May 30th. So Christine
Okay.
is June, just to be
Just,
clear.
okay.
That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah. Yeah, June 1st, she's gone. Yeah.
There was a motion and a second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right.
So you have the search on here too, so is there going to be someone appointed to that?
So for the business manager search, I had appointed myself,
Okay. Good.
but I'm going to be appointing someone else. And I had done that because you needed to start, and Mr. Ford is spearheading that, correct?
Correct.
With the middle school principal search, okay. So I have to appoint someone to the business manager search. I love how Fabienne's just looking down, right, and ignoring me, acting like,
My ears are perked up.
But it's for the new business manager and someone that that knows finance. Is that something you'd be interested in being part of? I know you work in finance. And
Yeah, yeah.
Please, okay, so guess what? I'd like to appoint Fabienne to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations Search.
Accepted.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so that's the last piece on that. The next was the 2023-24 school calendar. Dr. Abu had asked that we make a slight revision to it and add operation hours for summer.
Yes, just to clarify that the normal operation hours are 8 to 4, and over the summer and school vacations would be 8 to 3.
8 to 3?
Mhm.
So that's like families, if they come, they reach out in the summer, it's between 8 3, that's it. There's no,
And they can either reach out here or they can reach out to the individual school, but it's a consistent hours.
okay. So what we would have to do is we would have to talk to Kathy to add it to the bottom of the calendar.
If you could.
Okay, and then that would be it, and she would, and then do you think that, because every year, there's like a communication that goes out to families and that says, these are office hours and the summer hours and this and that. I think it's a nice ad, so people know that they're open yeah. Oh, he's here. Jeff Pickett's in the room, no one can see him, he's not on camera, but he's shaking his head, yes, it's a good idea. Because it does give people, everyone kind of references the calendar and it lets them know when they should call the schools or whatever, so, okay, so.
As long as it's not going to change the first day of school, that's fine.
Katie's so happy about that one.
Well, I have to say that a bunch of people think that we have somehow made a mistake and are convinced that that's wrong, but I want to assure them that we're not changing the first day of school. We just heard it here. It's not. It is what it is on the calendar. We're not changing the dates.
No, it's a different thing this year. It's because it's only a one-day difference. That's all it is. It's not like it's going to move the end of the school year like 4 days or 3 days if something happens. And
Don't even start.
It makes
We'll
Katie
leave-
happy.
no, we'll- yep.
Look at, it makes her
They all
happy. Just look at her
should have
happy
been.
face. Look at her.
They all should have been after Labor Day.
So happy. So anyway, I'm just going to make the motions because everybody seems tired.
Everyone
It's
make a
been-
motion
Do
to
you wanna do-
accept, to
thank you.
put the hours on the 2023-24 school calendar
And going forward on all of them.
and going forward.
Oh, it's such a nice motion. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
To you, Katie.
Aye.
Oh my
Aye.
gosh. Well, it's after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, turn into pumpkins. And then the last piece is.
Oh, so what?
We have the school committee policies. We all went through. Usually we do the viewings, but given the fact that we will be leaving, which I don't want you guys to start crying here. Pass these down to Fabienne. She needs those. So we have what we would look to do. I'm sure you guys all reviewed these, right? Coming out, and there were slight changes based on the wording MASC language policy. We do have one that came back, KHBA signage, that came back that we need to review again. But these other ones were wording changes that we could, talk about if anybody had any feedback, and then we could make a motion to dismiss the rules and approve these policies. I'm like tongue twisted because it's late. We could approve the policies this evening and close this out before we leave as well.
So you don't actually have to dismiss the rules because there's a provision within the existing policy that if a policy is at the discussion stage and there's no dissent, everybody lines up and agrees with the new policy, you can simply vote it at this point without,
Okay.
just as part of the regular process.
Thank you. I do wanted to tell you something I had asked the MASC a while ago, and I forgot. It was when I was submitting the policies. We don't have to write Stoughton Public Schools on the top. They remove it every time they upload it to the policy manual.
So when we put that
I
on.
know you submit it.
We put that on just for this purpose, because when we send it, we actually send it as a Word document, and they cut and paste and slice and dice.
Yeah, because they only take this, I just figured I'd tell you they take the small portion. But anyway, so I'll start down here. So in DBC to KCD, do you have any questions on any policies?
Man.
Yeah, you already went through all of them. We've already walked through because we knew they were standard changes.
Yeah, no, I think everything
Yeah,
makes
they're
sense.
pretty standard.
No questions.
Yeah. What we could do, and I feel like you're on a roll, Lindsay. I don't know why, but I feel like you're totally on a roll.
Read all of them.
Just do the, just read, just
Want
do
me to pass it
the.
down this end? I can go down here. Oh, you're laughing, Catherine? But if we can make a motion to approve them, we would need to list each policy. DBC, DBD, you can just say the number
Oh, you want
to
me to-
approve, yeah, but you don't have to do KHBA, that's a separate
Okay.
one. Okay?
I'd like to make a motion to approve policy DBC. Do I need to read out what it is?
I don't, no.
Okay. Policy DBC, DBD, DBG, DBJ, DD, DH, DI, DJ, DK, EEA, JIC, JICFB, and KCD.
Wow. Not even a stutter.
This time.
What was so to approve them?
I'll second that.
Fabian had her finger on the button.
All right, no, that's fine. She can
Right.
have it all.
Don't worry, we got another one. You can make the motion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so those are there. Okay, let me just move this. And then we had KHBA. Jonathan, if you want to help with this one, so we basically we made a revision to provide clarity. I'm just trying to remember where it is. Go ahead, thank you.
So we
Sorry.
added in the component, a written statement or equivalent promoting a personal political point of view or other such items anywhere within the SPS buildings. So we just added to that first sentence to provide some clarification.
Because there was clarification, asked for clarification, and we added that to make sure it was in there. This is outside of curriculum, so this is a policy that the signage was never put in place to get in the way of curriculum in what you're teaching or talking about when you're teaching both sides of, a discussion. So it's really important to say that because we want to, things can get interpreted in different ways, and this is just to ensure that there's some guidelines and that the principals have that autonomy within their buildings to be able to make decisions as they're approached with those questions on what to put up.
Can I
Yeah,
ask a
go
question?
ahead.
So if a teacher or a staff member has an idea for something that they would like to display in their classroom that they feel would benefit students in the learning community that's not necessarily curriculum related, but they feel would be beneficial to students, so there is a process now for them.
That's this process.
Yep. So
Yep.
their process is to go to their building
Principal.
administrator and talk about
That's right.
Or follow the process laid out by the building administrator.
Yeah, it's at the principal's discretion now to make that decision versus a district-wide decision that might not work in one building versus another.
Yep.
Any other discussion on that? All right, who wants to make Fabienne?
Make a motion to accept the SE policy KHBA signage with the amended changes.
Second. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. That's that. Other matters? I don't have anything, go ahead.
I would just like to share a really quick update from the Pilgrim Area Collaborative, if I could, because
Wonderful.
I haven't done this yet, and I apologize because I should have done this before now. But I am the Stoughton School Committee representative on the Pilgrim Area Collaborative Board of Directors, so just wanted to share an update with some headlines from our March 2nd meeting. So we've talked a lot about how special education out-of-district placements are increasing, so the flip side of that is that from the collaborative point of view, finances are really strong because it's tuition-based, so the collaborative is, has more students now and therefore is in like a strong financial position, secure financially with a wait list of about 60 students, but this is as of March 2nd. So this is, we're meeting again the first week of April. So it's just, there's high demand for collaborative services. There's a lot of student need. They've reviewed data on student enrollment recently and found that the ratio, since 2002, so in the last 20 years or so, the ratio of specialized program to behavior needs has actually flipped. So it used to be like mostly students requiring specialized education programming, and now with like a few behavior needs, and now that has essentially flipped so that they're doing a lot to meet increased behavior needs, to meet students' social emotional needs. So just wanted to give a little bit of context there to sort of color in some of the bigger conversations that we are having about budget. The collaborative is also working, so they're, with that in mind, they're continuing to just sort of like find good ways to support student needs based on the how that's evolving. They're also working with the local police department. They're based in Plymouth, so they're working with the Plymouth Police Department on sharing some best practices for supporting people with disabilities, especially students. So just thought that was interesting and wanted to share that out. And they actually just, a staff member from the Pilgrim Area Collaborative recently delivered a training to our Stoughton CPAC about executive functioning and just how to support your student with executive functioning skills. So I thought that was really interesting, and just a shout out to our Director of Special Education and the CPAC and the Pilgrim Area Collaborative for putting all that together. And there were a couple of students who were recognized for exemplary performance on the MCAS Alt, which is just the alternative for students who aren't able to sit for the MCAS or not able to show academic mastery on the regular MCAS. They would show it on the MCAS Alt. So that was exciting. And there's a current project in place to just make job descriptions more up to date and consistent that the board of directors had not voted on yet, but that's just sort of an ongoing project. So wanted to share that out because I know it's been a while, and I just apologize for not doing that sooner. But if anybody has any questions, I don't know if I'll be able to answer them, but would be happy to find the answer
I have
and
a
get back to you.
question. No, I'm just
Yes.
kidding. I'm just kidding. No, thank you. That goes hand in hand what we were talking about with the budget. It came out of nowhere. Like, it just seems like it just changed so significantly the opposite way.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of it is pandemic related, and then there's also just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that update. That was a really good one.
Yeah.
It's the most I think we've gotten on a Pilgrim update ever. Very good. Any other matters? All right, so that adjourns the meeting. So our next scheduled meeting will be March 28th, and that's next Tuesday. So now I'd like a motion to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.